Regardless of your language of choice, step 1 is to make sure you have a suitable environment and equipment. Refactoring and common IDE keyboard shortcuts either as existing knowledge already in your head or have a cheat sheet to hand. Getting familiar with shortcuts in both your IDE and any refactoring add-ons or plugins you have will invariably speed up your development process, especially when you get to that refactor stage. Have something to write with. Physical pen and paper are a good thing. Might seem a bit caveman in this world of wondrous technology, but being able to jot things down outside of your IDE quite quickly will help you remember things. This also helps with sketching designs. Now you've got your physical environment all set up.
The keyboard. How quaint.
Make sure you've got source control. Even if you're working on your own, it's good practice to have some form of source control there and to commit to it regularly. The standard these days is pretty much Git, but there are plenty of source control solutions out there. The important thing is that you have one and you are actually using it. Now it's time to look at your test framework. The first thing I suggest you do is write a test that does absolutely nothing and make sure that passes. This just makes sure that the test framework is happy, it's got all its dependencies, and that you can see and run tests. And the important thing is you can see whether it passed or failed. The first thing to then do is to start off with potentially a bit of design if you feel it's needed. Just making some notes will also help you with your general direction.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Your starting point in terms of your first test should always be the simplest degenerate case. Something, for example, like passing in nulls. You're now going to enter into a very tight cycle.
The cycle must end.
Writing a failing test.
Double red alert.
Making that test pass.
It is green.
Refactor.
Code blue.
Improve the structure of both sides of that equation. Both the test code and the production code should get refactored rigorously during your development cycle. And then the last bit is clean. And that's when you should be committing to source control.
It is possible to commit no mistakes.
Then move on to the next logical case. You should think of it as writing tests that force you to write the piece of code you think you wanted to write. So when making tests pass, it should only ever be enough code to make that test pass. Don't do more than's necessary. If you've got in your head that you need to do more, then write a test that forces you to write that piece of code. So simply put, until you write a test that forces you to write something more complex, then don't write something more complex. And this whole loop should only take a few minutes at most, with each step being a matter of seconds. If you think of test cases, make a note of them on your pen and paper. Basically create a queue of things that you think you want to write tests for. It also gives you a good way of coming back to it should you get distracted by, life and stuff. And one of the things to really remember is that test-driven development creates decoupled, testable code, but does not create good structure or architecture. That's what the refactoring phase is there to do. Refactoring does not change code behavior, it only changes its structure. Occasionally you get tests that are bound too closely to that implementation, and that's because those tests have been used to drive out a particular piece of implementation. But once that's done, you should really consider making those tests more holistic, so they're testing a more broad behavior, or removing them entirely from the code base, because they will only hinder any refactoring or change to the structure of the code going forwards. If you'd like to see more like this, then click on like, just let YouTube know. If code quality is something that you're interested in and improving, then I would invite you to check out this video next.